So as you enter this new area that looks kind of like a castle or something, and it's like all in ruins, and it has big pillars and like a broken staircase, there are two large statues that are up ahead that are well preserved, and we'll get to that here in just a moment. You want to stand on top of the large Triforce symbol here on the floor, and you'll see that the A button appears on the bottom of your screen. Press it to howl Zelda's Lullaby again, just as we did for the Skull Kid earlier in the same area. This will change the floor or whatever that we're currently standing on in the form of a very elaborate puzzle with all these little platforms. Now, a lot of you will either love or hate this puzzle to death, as it can be pretty difficult, and especially if you're not used to this sort of thing. Personally, I think it's a little intense for a main quest puzzle, and would be better off being like an optional minigame somehow. The statues will then awaken, and they will glow with a blue light and position themselves to either side of you, telling you to return them to where they once stood. Now just follow my instructions carefully, and I will show you how to do this. Keep in mind that I am playing this on the Wii version of the game, so if you are playing this on the GameCube, you will have to reverse my directions from left to right. Now the trick of this puzzle is to use the layout of the platforms to your advantage by traveling in ways where one or both of the statues can't move, so that way you can position yourselves in ways where you can move the statues to your desired location. So first off, you want to move the upper statue so that he's in a position where you can go off to here to the right. You want to start working your way upwards, and this way you'll be able to push the rightmost statue over into this little area where he can't move. From here you want to move the lower statue upwards, so now they're on the same level. From here you want to push them off, so now they're standing on the same like symmetrical squares. And then from here you want to make the one that goes opposite to your directions, you want to start going down, so that way he's going away from you. Now you'll notice that the statues are now symmetrically, they're going to be coming towards each other. In this way you can use them, the way they move, to land on top of the main platforms where they're supposed to go. So that is just one way to complete this puzzle, and there are a few others, but I think this way is the most simple and makes the most sense. You can get it on your own if you spend enough time working on it and you'll figure it out, but it can be pretty frustrating. And I think this is pretty much, that way I did it is pretty much the most popular way that I've seen so far that people have completed this puzzle. So with that, the doorway will then open and will allow us access into an area that the statues refer to as the Sacred Grove. It's the official area. So does this mean the places that we were just at are not really the Sacred Grove at all? Like the Lost Woods? Anyway, run forward into this big misty clearing and press A to check out the sword that is within the pedestal. As with all Zelda games that have this mystical blade, this will initiate a pretty sweet cutscene of Link acquiring the Master Sword. The sword shines and bursts out with a light that knocks Midna away, but not Link. Link will growl and bark or roar at it, I guess, shortly after which the Twilight within Link will then burst away and reform into what is called the Shadow Crystal that Zant used on Link earlier. Midna is inspecting it thoughtfully, but she glances up when she realizes what Link is doing. Link is back in his Hylian form and is standing in front of the pedestal, where he pulls out the legendary Master Sword, the Blade of Evil's Bane. As he holds it above his head all epically, the mist in the area will disperse, leaving the Sacred Grove to look all happy and sunny. Now it's important to understand that the Master Sword is like the mythical Excalibur in that no one can draw it, like you try and it won't work. So the only one who can do it is the chosen hero, meaning Link, in the game, each game where the Master Sword is required. So the Master Sword is not actually in all of the Zelda titles, it's only some of them. So Midna shows surprise because the Master Sword allowed Link to wield it, whom is probably the first person to do so in several hundred years, judging from the ruins around us. This is actually a pretty momentous occasion here. Midna will then pop up and show Link the Shadow Crystal that forced him to remain in wolf form. She goes on to say that if you were to touch it again, you would return to being a wolf, so it's probably best you just get rid of the thing. After a moment of thought, however, she suggests that you can keep it to turn into a wolf whenever you want. Now that we have the Master Sword to return to Hylian form, we can talk to Midna and it can change to the opposing form anytime we want. As you can imagine, this opens up whole new possibilities for us that will come into play here shortly. A large portion of this exact chapter is actually devoted to a new collectible item that we will be eligible for here now. So we're actually going to be spending a good deal of this chapter off getting this new collectible item. So Midna goes on to ask a favor, asking him if he will help her find the Mirror of Twilight, which she claims is quite possibly our last connection to Zant. This is the same thing she asked Zelda to tell us about earlier, but the princess made sure that Midna would be able to take us there instead. After she is done talking, Midna will then look kind of bashful or something, I guess, before she returns to being our shadow. So with that over, we now have the Master Sword, which does more damage than the Ordon Sword, and will kill most enemies in fewer hits. So now we also have the Shadow Crystal, which you can use by talking to Midna to transform into a wolf anytime you like. But this also allows us to teleport to any of the warp points we have thus far as well. So this is really nice, we can finally use all those warp points, even in our Hylian form. So real quick, as long as we're in the Sacred Grove area, there's actually a few goodies that we can go grab. Go to the opposite side of the area and go under the stairway doohickey in the back. there's a little passageway. So you want to enter the little doorway thing on the right, and turn around, and you'll find a golden bug that is hiding there in the corner. You want to use either your Clawshot or Gale Boomerang to bring it down, and pick it up to get the Male Snail. As always, the female counterpart is nearby in the same area. However, we are unable to get it until much, much later in the game, so we'll actually be returning here later to get that golden bug. You don't actually have to get that one that we just grabbed either. You can get that later too. It doesn't really matter. You want to go back to the clearing where we fought the Skull Kid, and you'll see that there's actually a large boulder right next to the central pillar. Now that we're back in our Hylian form, we can now use all of our items again, so you want to lay a bomb next to it and watch the fireworks. This will actually reveal an Imp Poe, which is odd because they usually only appear at night in the overworld areas like this. But this one's an exception, and it's actually out here during the day. You want to talk to Minda and transform into a wolf, then use your senses and you can defeat it. So just a couple smacks, you can smack it up easily. You can also use Minda's charge attack to defeat it. Once you finish it off, you want to grab the second Poe Soul. Now before disappearing from this area, you want to notice that there is a darker spot where the boulder was resting, so you can use your senses to see that it's all sparkly-like. So dig it up, you'll dig into it and you'll drop down into this hidden cave cavern area that's underground. So in here you'll see that there are tons of Baba Serpents, and you can fight them as either a wolf or in your Hylian form. Doesn't really matter which. I prefer using the sword because it actually does more damage at this point because now we finally have the Master Sword. So we'll actually do more damage in this form. So once you have smacked up all the enemies down here, once again you just want to use your spin attack if they latch onto you, and then if you want to kill them before they can get back into they can actually reattach their stems to the ground, whatever, any of those planted areas. So just make sure that doesn't happen. It should be easy for you to kill before that happens. So once they are all defeated, then a large treasure chest will appear on top of this little ledge containing a piece of heart. If you've been following the walkthrough thus far, this should be your 18th piece of heart. So once you've grabbed that, you want to go ahead and leave the cave. That is all the stuff we're going to do in the Sacred Grove for now. But once you leave, you will be unable to return here until much later. If you did not grab all the stuff that I just did, don't worry, because later on in the game we will be returning to the Sacred Grove and actually gain a portal here, so we'll be able to come here anytime we want. So don't feel bad if you missed this stuff. We will come back here later. So when I step into the light, this will take us back outside, so we're not underground anymore. Speak to Minda, and you can now warp. So use the warp location that is just outside Castletown, and now basically the rest of this entire chapter is getting pieces of heart and Poe Souls. So if you aren't really interested in that, and it sounds incredibly boring, you can go ahead and skip to the next chapter, because we have tons of videos up ahead, and that's basically all we're doing. So as you approach Castletown, the Postman will arrive to give you another letter, and it's odd because he will notice you even when you're in wolf form, but Link automatically transforms into his Hylian form to speak with the Postman. Now it's kind of a paradox, like, if the Postman calls out to you, that means he must have seen you. But if you transform back into a Hylian when he approaches, does that mean that he saw you transforming? Like, he would have to. I don't know. Anyways, he is bearing a letter from Telma, who is informing you to come to her bar and speak with the Resistance group. So this is the same group she was telling us about earlier in Kakariko Village. It's the same group that we saw when we were sneaking around in her bar as a wolf. So we actually saw 3 people sitting at a table there, but there's actually 4 people total, and they will help us to gain access to the next 4 dungeons of the game. So we'll be talking with one of them in this chapter later on, too, as well. But for now, we just have some goodies to grab. So as I said earlier, if you are not interested in getting a bunch of optional goodies and stuff, then just skip ahead to the next chapter. Otherwise, meet up with me in Central Hyrule Field for the next video, and we will get some good stuff. So here I'm just running through Castletown as a wolf. So join me for the next video, and I will see you guys there.